Hey everyone, it's Jeff from New York, and today we're going to visit Highline Park, which is a park that was built on an old overhead railroad which was part of the West Side Line. The park originates in the Meatpacking District and runs along the west side through Chelsea and up into Midtown to 34th Street near the Javits Center. Because of declining usage, the railway viaduct was effectively abandoned in 1980. Repurposing of the railway into an urban park began in 2006. The Highline's success has inspired cities throughout the United States to redevelop obsolete infrastructure as public space. The project has spurred real estate development in adjacent neighborhoods, increasing real estate values and prices along the route in an example of the halo effect. So let's get started on our 1.5-mile trek along these overhead tracks, starting in the Meatpacking District on Gainsbourg Street and heading north up to Midtown. Alright, I'm going to keep this photo up for just a little bit because there's a lot going on here. That's Bubby's Highline restaurant on the right. It would be almost impossible for a business to fail at this location. The beginning of the Highline Park is across the street, and Bubby's proving my point. This all-American diner is packed with hungry people inside and out. Across the street, which is Hudson Street, is the beginning or end, depending upon which way you're walking, of the Highline Park. The building directly behind the Highline on the left and above the Highline was the recent subject of a big New York City real estate bidding war, which was won by the Whitney organization, the Whitney Museum people. This area of the Meatpacking District in Chelsea is a hot spot for high-end galleries and artists, and the Whitney organization plans on making this building its Whitney Museum South location. All of this activity makes everyone happy, especially Bubby. Once you make your way up to the tracks, you'll notice that the street signs below are not very visible from the park because, well, they're below you. These markers along the park's railing let you know where you are at all times. When you come up to this glass railing, you'll realize that you're either at the very beginning or the very end of the Highline Park, depending upon which way you're walking. Here we're coming upon the Standard Hotel, the only modern building to rise up and over Highline Park. It was completed in 2009 and the structure resembles an open book. Some say open book is a perfect description. It has been reported and confirmed on local news that people check into the hotel and have a, quote, good time at the windows with the curtains open so Highline Park visitors can get an eyeful. Since word got out about this activity, it seems more and more exhibitionists have been checking in. It also seems more and more Highline Park visitors are wearing binoculars around their necks, though most will claim it's for bird watching. So here's a brief history about Highline Park. About 100 years ago, Chelsea and the Meatpacking District were major industrial and meat supply areas of Manhattan. A street-level railroad was built to deliver and ship items from the factories in the area. Unfortunately, many pedestrians were killed by the busy train traffic. Then somebody came up with the idea of building an above-ground rail line to service the factories. This above-ground line would actually enter the factories via their second or third floors to make deliveries and pick up shipments. It was a great idea that worked for decades until the 1950s and 60s, when companies that owned the factories started to pull out of Manhattan for cheaper locations. Until recently, the Highline stood above the Meatpacking District and Chelsea, unused, rusting, and becoming a neighborhood eyesore. While the neighborhoods below the Highline have been experiencing a renaissance of real estate, arts, and culture, this big, old, heavy rust pile seemed to be over everybody's head. The city's initial response was to tear the structure down piece by piece. The cost for the teardown project proved to be prohibitive, and another solution was needed. Then someone, obviously not a politician, came up with a great, inexpensive idea that would improve the area and draw crowds, and their money, to Chelsea and the Meatpacking District. Beginning 2006, restoration of the structure and plans for the park were put into place. From the day it opened, Highline Park has been a huge urban success. As you can see by the photos, much of the original structure, including the railroad tracks, have been left intact and the trees and park structures have been built around them. The tracks continue to go through buildings as you walk along the park. About midway through the park, the tracks go through the old Nabisco biscuit factory, which is now Chelsea Market. You can find out more about Chelsea Market by checking out my other videos. There are other vendors and street musicians all along the way that spans entirety. The sights, sounds, and flavors offer your senses a real treat as you stroll along the park. This is the Brass Monkey Beer Garden, a local favorite as seen from the Highline Park. This is a newly constructed building in Chelsea as seen from the Highline Park. If you watch my videos, you'll know that I comment a lot on architecture. All I have to say about this one is, this is why architects should not party in college. This is the back of the Diane von Furstenberg's fashion design company headquarters as seen from the Highline Park. Furstenberg and her husband Barry Diller are major supporters of the park. The back of the building has painted lips, but most notably is the building's roof, which is known to all in the neighborhood as the Diamond in the Sky. Here we're coming up on the Giorgio Armani studio. Lots of fashion and art as we head further into the Chelsea district on the High Line. It's amazing how massive structures such as buildings, railroads, and other infrastructure come within inches of each other. This is seen throughout Manhattan, where real estate seems to be measured by the centimeter. We're looking east here from Highland Park at West 14th Street, a major thoroughfare going through Chelsea and the Village. These wooden lounges in Highline Park are prime keister real estate. If you manage to get an empty one, they're on wheels which are attached to the original train tracks. This feature allows you to move away from, or perhaps closer, to the stranger next to you. Who says New Yorkers don't know how to relax? Here we're coming upon the Chelsea Market Building. This building used to be home to the National Biscuit Company, or Nabisco for short. There's lots to see and eat here when you get inside, but that's another video you'll have to catch on my channel. Once again, we're looking east from Highline Park, and this is 15th Street. That's Chelsea Market on the left-hand side. As you walk along Highline Park, lots of buildings come very close to the walkway. Here we see a window that offers good security. And here we see one that offers awesome security. You'll find lots of street art on my channel, but perhaps this is better described as park art. Both works are painted on a rooftop, only visible to Highline Park visitors. The horizontal work reminds me of those velvet kits that used to come with bright colored markers so you can fill in the white space. No disrespect to the artist, but I would love to run to Home Depot, buy about 12 different colored paints, and go at it with brushes and rollers. Here's a billboard in Chelsea as seen from the Highline Park. I'm not sure what they're advertising here, but boy would I like to buy some. These bleacher type seats in Highline Park are set directly above the street below. Cars, buses, and taxis pass right underneath your butt. What looks like openings in the street below are actually very clean glass panels so you can enjoy the view and avoid the noise and fumes. It's a perfect place for catching some sun, enjoying a quick lunch, and or just watching the world go by you, or underneath you. This is the Merchants Refrigerator Company warehouse. This cold or refrigerated warehouse was built in 1917. In the 1930s, it was retrofitted to accommodate the High Line Railroad. The building was purchased in 1983, and according to the New York Times, it took 7 months for the building to completely thaw out. In the past few years, holes have been punched into the walls to allow for office windows. The current resident is the DEA, or the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency. Lavender, dogwood trees, shrubs, flowers, and succulents, you name it, and it's probably growing somewhere between the tracks in the Highline Park. He's pretty good, and you might want to throw him a tip, but that's not what he's here for. He just wants to practice in the sun on a beautiful day in the park. Here we have some street art or sculpture along the Highline Park. It looks like lollipops. You can spend some time on the High Line with these young ladies showing off the newest Chelsea style, crepe paper clothing. If I was wearing this, I'd keep an eye on the weather report. This is the Half King Cafe as seen from the Highline Park, a Chelsea restaurant and bar with photo exhibits and readings. They also have a podcast of their weekly readings. This building is simply known as HL23, a combination of High Line and 23rd Street. It's the first piece of architecture to be named after the High Line Park. The structure is rare in that it is much wider at the top, 40% wider, than it is at the base. While the HL23's footprint is next to the High Line Park, the top of the building actually leans over the park. New York City has some very strict zoning laws. I can't imagine the red tape and butt kissing that had to take place to get this very unique building completed. I found these young trees with large, lush leaves along the Highland Park. I'm not sure what type of tree they are. Comments are welcome, but they're very pretty. While they look tropical, nothing tropical would survive a winter in this urban jungle. Another beautiful building along the Highline Park, and another striking example of how new and old buildings exist next to each other along the park's path. Here's some railroad art, and you won't hear that term that often, along the Highline Park in Chelsea. These sculptures are constructed from some of the original railroad ties used when the High Line was originally constructed. Some more stadium seating overlooking Chelsea at the Highline Park. I came across some new construction along the High Line Park in Chelsea. It's funny, no matter where you turn in Manhattan, it seems like a new building is being constructed. However, rarely do you see an old one being torn down. This, of course, is impossible since Manhattan has no empty land. The rule of thumb is, if there's no building, then it's a protected space, for example, a park or other civil area. After some contemplation, I realized it takes weeks, if not just days, to demolish an old building, but yet years to construct a new one. During this phase of construction, one wonders what the finished building will look like. Will the exterior be glass, steel, or stone? Will its use be an office use or retail or residential? Will it be 7 stories high or 70? The unusual offset position of one of the supports suggests that this building is going to have a unique shape, and judging by the building's footprint and hefty support structures, it's going to be large and tall. Large and tall are relative terms. It will be large and tall for Chelsea, and it would probably dominate the skyline of most medium-sized U.S. cities. On the island of Manhattan, however, the finished building will probably fade into the background of hundreds of buildings of the same size. Very few new buildings can live up to the claim of changing the Manhattan skyline. By the way, is that scaffolding a work of art or what? The colors, function, and form would classify it as sculpture in my head. What makes it even more beautiful to me is the fact that it's temporary. Like everything else in life, it'll be replaced by something else. To me, that makes it even more beautiful. I hope you enjoyed this video on the High Line Park, and if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and click on that little bell to be notified of new videos coming out on this channel. Thank you for watching.